Welcome to part 2 of my 2023 layout tour. If you are new to my channel or just happen to miss part 1 of my most recent layout video, be sure to check it out here. As 2023 is quickly coming to an end, I wanted to make sure to get this video out to document the progress completed on my HO scale Heartland Division layout this year. In part 1 of my tour, I left off by stopping a UP-led Herzog ballast train near the end of the Chicago classification yard. I'll pick back up by putting the 4 scale trains, rivet counter locomotives, and the 25-car train in motion. As the main line curves, it is paralleled by an arrival and departure track lead and the ladder track approach. Here you can see the main and the yard lead both passing under one of 2 Atlas signal bridges in the area. These signals control all traffic running on the main, through the double crossover, and trains going in and out of the yard's west end. Both of these signal bridges are controlled by an Arduino Mega board, which communicates via an RS-485 network to JMRI. I recently spent some time installing a long section of Walther's urban retaining wall along this seam to separate the upper and lower track levels. I also began placing ground cover and track ballast to this area. West Chicago is home to a Cargill corn syrup plant which receives covered hoppers and ships out tanks that often make their way across town to the food processing plant. I have also roughed in a small UPS transfer facility and a typical modern style gas station to fill in this space. All of these buildings are Walther's Cornerstone kits. To transition between city life and rural scenery, I placed 1 non-functional spur and an additional track that services a bulk transfer industry. As the train continues west, the tracks begin a 1.5% grade that gets the main line high enough to run on what I call the background level. This section of scenery will eventually resemble the countryside with a 2-lane highway in the foreground. The crew spots the anticipated solid red signal ahead, and they proceed to bring their train to a stop. One of this year's major projects was the installation of a signaling system on a large section of the layout. Over the course of 7 days, my dad and I worked countless hours building JMRI panels, defining the logic, and wiring up the signal system. For block occupancy, NCE BD20 block detectors were installed in predetermined sections. I was able to find and slightly modify a 3D file in order to print these nifty BD20 holding fixtures, making for a cleaner install underneath the layout. We utilized Arduino Megas to relay the status of each BD20 to JMRI over our established RS-485 network. These Arduinos are fitted with terminal block boards in order to make the installation of multiple wires much easier. For the standalone signals, NCE lighted decoders were tapped into the DCC bus and assigned to each signal head. Lightets can be placed near each signal, eliminating the need for additional wiring. Since I am usually running the layout by myself, I prefer to keep the signals in ABS mode. CTC mode is also an option, and I can manually assign the signals from the control panel. Getting back to the layout, a higher priority loaded coal train makes its way past the ballast train and onto the main. We will now follow this consist of scale trains, Tier 4 GEVOs, and Rapido Auto Flood 3 cars the rest of the way into St. Louis. Although basically untouched for over a year, this section is the start of a typical Midwestern farm scene. One in which I envision some small cultivated crop fields to join the multi-generational homestead area and a small water feature that runs throughout. The sweeping curve holds a 42-inch radius, and that's something I wanted to include on the layout as it makes the modern railroad equipment look a lot more prototypical on the rails. Just past the farm, the rails pass over a 2-lane road followed by a small lake. If you have followed my Instagram account for a while, you may have seen this bridge on a diorama that I previously built. Here the layout begins to level out for about a 20-foot section that will be the site of a large grain elevator complex. I messed around with the Walthers grain bins and silos for quite a while before scratching them for these corrugated silos offered by Iowa Scaled Engineering. So far, I have only purchased one of the 7 planned silos just to make sure they have the look that I'm going for. I also plan to place them on some concrete foundations that I designed and 3D printed. The large grain dryer is from Southern Tier Grain Modeler Supply, and it is also a fairly impressive model. It comes basically assembled, however I still need to add caged ladders and paint it to finish it up. Another added feature to the grain complex is this hopper loading simulator. To add some realism to operations, once a car is in place, you press the button and wait for the indication that the car is loaded before moving it and placing the next car under the chute. Shortly after the elevator complex, the 1.5% grade resumes in order to gain the last bit of elevation needed before the tracks make it to the background. I recently painted and ballasted both tracks in this section, while also plastering and painting the base for future scenery. And here is a loaded UP grain train patiently waiting for the main to clear. This train is led by 2 Athearn Genesis SD59M-2s that I recently acquired for the layout. Around this bend, the main line begins its approach to the MacArthur Bridge. I used every inch of space available without blocking my home's electrical breaker panel. That resulted in this section of track being extremely close to the edge of the layout. Careful track work has resulted in 0 incidents thus far. My freelanced version of the historic MacArthur Bridge was constructed out of 2 Walthers deck girders, 3 Walthers arched Pratt truss kits, and a micro-engineering double-track city viaduct. In total, the bridge scene spans just over 8 foot across. This bridge serves as a main thoroughfare over the Mississippi River between the states of Illinois and Missouri, putting trains right into the heart of St. Louis. Immediately on the bridge's west side, I built this combination of Walthers cornerstone urban overpasses and the elevated commuter station. This will serve as the Amtrak station in downtown St. Louis. Around this turn, the tracks begin to separate in order to form a reversing loop that allows for the continuous running of trains around my layout. After the main crosses over the lower level, I worked in 2 additional tracks to be used for passing and staging of additional trains. There is also a spur that will eventually service a brewery complex. For now, the large open space is just being used to store excess locomotives. One of my favorite things to do is watch the trains make their way around the loop, head back in the other direction, and make another trip across the layout. For more info and links to my social media accounts and Amazon project lists, be sure to check out the description below. And if you have any questions regarding my layout or modeling, please post in the comments and I will do my best to answer them. And this brings my layout tour to an end. As always, thanks for watching and stay tuned for future videos in 2024.